Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I am going to be talking about the 2018 to 2019 Jupiter in Sagittarius transit. Now, transit Jupiter will enter Sagittarius on November 8th, 2018, and right off the bat, it is going to conjunct the moon, so you're going to see a lot of very ebullient exuberant emotional energy, to say the least, right off the bat. And this is going to, you're talking about Jupiter and Sagittarius transit. Of course, this could impact all collectively, but especially those, of course, with a Sagittarius sun, moon, or ascendant. This could be could even be very affluent, very lucky and fortuitous transit for Sagittarius, especially for a Sagittarius sun. The basic wants, of course, and in the moon, the emotional needs and things that maybe are desired perhaps on a more unconscious or subconscious level. And the ascendant, of course, the ascendant really, is really about what's expressed very outwardly, naturally, and blatantly, those needs and wants that are expressed in that manner. But keep in mind, again, as I've stated a number of times in previous videos, that Jupiter also has a propensity to enlarge and expand. It can be very paradoxical. It's very benign and benevolent, mainly, but it can also enlarge and expand things. And for Sagittarius ascendant, especially during the time when it's conjunct your first house, if it's during the time it traverses your first house, it could very well expand the waistline. And Sagittarius rising especially does have a tendency to be a little bit heavier than average. So it's just a time to be careful if you're watching sports or something and trying and indulging. You're on the couch or something. Just be careful as far as eating excessively during this time. Now, thing about this too is that, of course, this is going to be transitioning from secretive Scorpio into more ebullient jocular Sagittarius. When transit Jupiter was in Scorpio during that time, it was more about, I think, a lot of enlargement of surreptitious activity, a lot of secrets being unveiled, you heard about a lot of sexual misconduct coming out, and a lot of it from people that were in the sports world. Interestingly enough, you look at Jupiter, and Jupiter can be connected with sports, and of course, anything sexual can be tied in with the zodiac sign Scorpio. Now, as far as this transit goes with Jupiter and Sagittarius, this could, of course, be very auspicious for sports, people in any kind of sports realm. It could be sports athletes, it could be writers, people that are dealing with sports medicine, sports professions in general, publishers, professors, people in the travel agency, such as an industry, I should say, such as working as a travel agent, a pilot, could be a cruise director. It could be, and this could also be very positive and beneficial for clergymen, people in religious congregations, people that are connected with the law, and also even casinos. Things that are risk-taking, it could be very advantageous for. I could really see a very strong expansion in casino and gambling during this time, more so than usual. You might even see some expansion of some sports teams in certain major sports leagues as well during this transit. Also, too, this would be very positive for foreign relations, foreign affairs. I don't mean interludes. I mean just general activity, just general action that's connected with foreigners, just the general interaction with people in different countries. This could be also very good for outdoorsmen, people, just outdoor activity in general, even people that generally, it could be even if somebody has a very introspective, or I should say introverted chart, it could be even those people might be more inclined to go outside and enjoy the outdoors and have more interaction with people in the outside world, more so than usual. And even yours truly might be more inclined to do that, maybe a little more so than usual. And again, as I've stated before, Jupiter, of course, very benign and benevolent, but also could be very paradoxical. It can enlarge and expand. you could really, I mean, it could also enlarge and expand positive and negative energy in association with the zodiac sign. With Sagittarius, I mean, this could be about, I mean, you might see collectively people expressing a lot more benevolence, expansive energy, optimism, hope, enthusiasm, but at the same time, negatively expressed, it could manifest in more foolhardy, flighty, very self-righteous and over-optimistic and reckless behavior. And people really need, to be very prudent at this time at some level, because they don't want to. It's about really, you don't want to take on too much more than one can handle, because this, of course, I mean, this transit can be connected with excessive, very and sometimes distorted optimism and confidence, and a lot of it could depend on the aspects that are made to your points, your natal chart. If it's making a lot of adverse aspects, it could be a lot of over optimistic energy, and negative and adverse aspect to your natal Mars, for example, could be like, say, if it makes a square in conjunct or opposition to your Mars at a point during the transit, you might feel like you can really just accomplish and do just about any action virtually possible. But you might really be going, really going above the limits, because this could be about very distorted energy in that example. And it could be like, for example, you might have somebody might be trying to bench press more than one can handle due to over optimistic energy. And when this happens, what's interesting about this, there's going to be a lot of shifting of energy right off the bat when Jupiter actually hits, when it enters Sagittarius. I mean, you're going to have the North Node will enter the zodiac sign Cancer on November 6th, very close proximity to this Jupiter and Sagittarius transit. And there's also going to be a new moon in Scorpio at this time as well. Around the same moment, you're going to have, I mean, Jupiter, and you're going to have, when Jupiter enters Sagittarius, excuse me, it's also going to make that very tight trine to the North Node in Cancer. And this could be very auspicious and favorable for foreign travel, traveling abroad. It could be connecting or reconnecting with a family member, finding and simply finding a new home. The North Node will be at 29 degrees Cancer, of course, when the North Node first enters Cancer. And many see the 29th degree of Cancer as that millionaire's degree. I think it's interesting, you're going to have Jupiter just entering Sagittarius at this same time, almost everything but simultaneously. And you're going to have, and you might see a lot more exuberance and enthusiasm in people at least trying to win the lottery and become perhaps a millionaire. People are going to be feeling, more people are going to have that lucky feeling during this time, more so than usual. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to have more people winning the lottery, but I think what's going to happen is you're going to have more people actually attempting to become millionaires, and attempting to win a lot of money and become very affluent. So the thing about this is, you also, and again, you're going to have that new moon in Scorpio on November 7th. So this could be a new period of transformation for many, and also a period of rebirth and regeneration for many. This could also, I mean, when you're talking about the North Node in Cancer and then Jupiter entering Sagittarius near the same time, this could be about getting really that future new home with this energy, and having that Jupiter and Sagittarius optimism and exuberance for this. Now, it's also important to look at the house this falls in one's chart, as this, of course, can impact the delineation and interpretation. Now, mine is going to fall in my 7th house for most of the transit. Now, during this time, well, perhaps this could be fortuitous for me as far as doing something with, as far as sports, religious, relationship connections. It could be something where this could also be very lucky and fortuitous for me in terms of foreign travel in connection with a significant other. if somebody say has this in the sixth house, remember as I've stated before, this could be very paradoxical. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, and again, a tendency to enlarge and expand. It could also expand if somebody has this in their sixth house in their natal chart, that transit hitting their sixth. This could expand and enlarge health-related Sagittarius issues, such as problems with the thighs, the liver, sciatic nerve, and especially say if this is making an inconjunct to one's ascendant. Now, if it's say somebody has a Cancer ascendant, this is making the inconjunct to it. Keep in mind that the North Node in Cancer will likely be in the person's first house at this time as well. In most cases, it should be, or in a lot of cases, it will be. Now, this could be during that time. I mean, there's also when you're talking about the North Node at the first house, this could be about having to address or confront issues that are connected with the physical body. So people that have a Cancer ascendant and they say you're having this Jupiter in Sagittarius and it's hitting someone's that person's sixth house, this could be a time where it could be very sadly, it could be very adverse health period for the zodiac sign Cancer, especially if Cancer is rising. So because then you're talking about the actual literal natal chart of a person. Now another thing is that transit and also the aspects this makes to points in one's natal chart during the transit could impact the delineation interpretation as well, and the influence of this. Now mine transit Jupiter is going to it's going to make a trine to my Venus in Leo, trying to exact on January 27th, 2019. Now at this time for me, this might be very fortuitous for love, perhaps in that lucky Jupiter and Sagittarius energy. It could be fortuitous for love, perhaps with a Leo I might feel close to home with because I have Venus and Leo in the fourth house. And it could also be, it could be perhaps through the expansion of sports, philosophical, even foreign or religious relationships. And those people, I may get the assistance I need perhaps for some kind of extravagant home fees or just simply things I feel close to home with. Now, shortly after Jupiter enters Sagittarius, it will make a square to Mars in Pisces. It's going to be an interesting time during this transit. I mean, it's going to, it'll make that square from around November 15th, 2018 to November 27th, 2018. And this could be very adversarial for this expansion, expansive, exuberant, enthusiastic energy and religion versus perhaps angry, acrimonious people that are more spiritual minded and might be more, and all these people might be connected, to metaphysical, which could include astrology. So there could be very strong conflict during this time as far as those two things go. Though, and the thing about it is I understand there's conflict all the time with those things, but it might be more intensified during this time than usual. There will be a lot more, I think, more tension and connection with these beliefs than usual, as far as people just showing that being very exuberant, enthusiastic regarding things regarding a religious nature, and others full and philosophical beliefs are going to be, I think, very strongly in conflict again with people that are putting that energy, so to speak, into things that are more spiritual and even things tied in with the metaphysical again, which could include astrology. So it's an interesting period to look at, I think. And also another, it'd be very critical period. We're going to have a mutable grand cross configuration on June 10th, 2019. And it's going to consist of Jupiter and Sagittarius, of course. That's why I'm talking about it, because it is tied in with the Jupiter and Sag transit. Jupiter and Sagittarius, Sun and Gemini, the moon in Virgo, and Neptune in Pisces. Now, in general, when you're talking about a mutable grand cross in astrology, this can suggest much tribulation, adversity, a lot of obstructions, a lot of tension, but it could result in some cases in inordinate achievement if you could work through these things, through all these conflicts. Remember, when you have a fixed grand cross. No, I'm sorry, not fixed grand cross, well, grand cross in general. This is going to be a mutable grand cross configuration. But when you have a grand cross in astrology, you have 6 adverse aspects. You have 2 oppositions, and you have 4 squares. And all these things could be very intensified, and all these aspects could be very intensified, I believe, because it is in this configuration. And what's going to when you have and when you're talking about mutable, grand cross energy, it could be very strong anxiety and worrisome energy, a lot of vacillation, ambivalence, and indecision. And this configuration may intensify strongly the negative energy of the planets and the signs that are connected with this. Now, the Jupiter in Sagittarius, what will happen with this during this configuration, it could really, I think, really expand that over-optimistic, even coxcombical, foolhardy, self-righteous, even tactless energy during this time, being overly voracious and blunt to the point of demoralizing others. Now, Jupiter, one of the aspects Jupiter in Sagittarius will make during this time in this configuration, it will oppose the Sun in Gemini. Now, I think a lot of this could manifest perhaps at this time collectively. I mean, for not everybody, for a lot of people in immigration, they might have, this could be about expanded immigration issues, situations, perhaps oppose maybe authority figures, people that are in the spotlight, so to speak, that might be seen as overly superficial, as excessively loquacious, people that might be seen, maybe as somewhat two-faced by others. Now, I think what's interesting is that I look at this, and of course, Donald Trump has his Sun in Gemini. And he has very adamant, of course, about certain issues regarding immigration. And I'm not saying, going here saying I think, well, he's two-faced or anything overly negative, but I just think it's interesting that he has his Sun in Gemini, and he is a leader, of course, being the United States president. And I think, this could reflect maybe him to some degree as one of these people represented, I think, by this Sun in Gemini energy at the time, making that opposition to Jupiter in Sagittarius in this mutable Grand Cross configuration. Now, another thing too, another aspect that this is going to make, of course, for Jupiter in this mutable Grand Cross configuration is that it's going to make the square to Neptune in Pisces. Now, this is where it could be very adversarial, where you have this over-exuberance, perhaps in looking at this really in maybe in terms of maybe false prophets. Maybe people might be misguided by them, putting a lot of this overemphasis, this over-exuberance enthusiasm in them. These false mediums, it's very careful to not be really influenced by this at this time. And also, I think a lot of this is going into that energy I was talking about before with that aspect that we're going to have early on during Jupiter and Sagittarius transit, when we're going to have Jupiter and Sagittarius making that square to Mars in Pisces. I think this could be similar. You're going to have people that are about religion, a lot of a very strong abundance of religious people, philosophical people, going against others that are just maybe more spiritually inclined, and they're going, and people that might be more connected with, say, the metaphysical, which could include astrology. And another thing too is that at this time of this mutable Grand Cross configuration, you're going to have Jupiter in Sagittarius making the square to the moon in Virgo. And how I think this may manifest could be is that you're going to have A lot of this conflict between really this hope and optimism connected with long distance travel might conflict to perhaps an emotional need, perhaps to work laboriously and take care of one's health, and being the moon, I mean at home, that things that maybe at their own actual home, and not going out and trying to venture out and do any long distance traveling. And I think that's a way that can manifest. It could really be a lot of people maybe going through their own battles as far as that goes, and trying to make the decisions. And given that you're talking about all this mutable energy, of course, there's going to be a lot of ambivalence and indecision and anxiety and worry in association with these things that I just described. Now, anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. For my take on the Jupiter, the 2018 to 2019 Jupiter in Sagittarius transit, stay tuned next time, where I will be giving you my take on, I'm going to be talking about the Jupiter in Sagittarius transit part 2. And in that segment, I'm going to be talking about the transit's possible impact on the zodiac signs Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, and Virgo. Anyway, people, two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel, but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart, and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.